Okay guys, welcome back to the hand trap tier list. In this tier list we want to talk about the best hand traps in this current format. I have the categories main deck, which means that this is so good you should play it in your main deck. We have side deck, which is basically saying we don't have a side deck in Master Duel, mind me, but side deck is basically saying this is the second tier of hand traps. If there would be a side deck, you would put this hand trap in there because in some matches it is really nice, but not good enough to be consistently in the main deck. Then we have situational, which obviously it's situational. In some situations it can be good, but in most it is actually not. And then we have useless, which basically means you never want to use this card. I have copied this list from someone on Tier Maker. So there's an evenly matched tier, which is normally not really a hand trap. And then there's this thing with the tornado, which I don't even know what this is. So also the spider thing here. So the first thing we are going to do is put all the useless stuff into the useless category so we can talk about the really impactful hand traps, right? So no material you would never use. You would never use this, never use this. I guess you would probably never use this. You would never use this. Battle Fader you would never use. The spider never. Maxi thing never. I don't even know what this is, so never. So humor me here. Evenly matched, we can talk about evenly matched, even though it's not a hand trap. And then I think the rest we can definitely talk about. I guess Lancia is also something that in this current format is really not something that you would ever play. So let's talk about this here. I think this is quite nice. I think these are the hand traps. And for those of you who can't see, we will come to this in a moment because my picture is over this. I just see in the picture. There's an Nibiru, there's Ghost Ogre, there's SAR Aris, and then there's Dimensional Shifter. But you will see them in a moment when I place them on a tier list. So let's start. We have the Ash, which obviously is one of the main deck staples that you should have in your main deck. Actually, this is one of the formats where we are closest to not putting an Ash in the main deck, or where you could argue the most for not putting it there, because there are also other really nice ones like the Ghost Bell, for example, or the Drone Lockbird that people are playing more and more. But I mean, the Ash Blossom is still the Maxi counter. And by the way, on this hand trap tier list, there is no Maxi here because for one, it's not really a hand trap. But obviously, if you want to put Maxi somewhere here, Maxi is always in the main deck. Maxi is the best card in the game. Maxi basically says, hey opponent, skip your turn. You have won the coin toss. I don't care. Now it's my first turn. I can even kill you because it's my second turn in reality. So Maxi is always main deck material. There is not a single format in which you do not want to play Maxi. The only format in which, so let's imagine Labyrinth would be the best deck around, or trap decks would be the best deck around, or let's say burn decks who play like this wave motion cannon who does 1000 damage every time you activate it. Then this might be a format in which you do not play Maxi because there are no special summons, or let's say everyone plays either Flaunt Reese or Labyrinth. Then you might not play Maxi, but this is the only situation that I could ever think of in which Maxi would not be the most played card ever, which is also why Ash is just something that is still in your main deck because you can Ash the Maxi. This will never get old. This will always be relevant as long as Maxi is the thing that you want to play, and it just is. Ash is always a main deck worthy card, even though, as I already said, this is I think it's closest to ever not being mandatory in the main deck like it ever was. But we still have the Maxi interaction, which is so strong. If your opponent Maxis you, you can Ash this, then you can play the game. This is so impactful that you can't really not play the Ash. Then we have Ghost Bell, which now we have to talk about this, right? Ghost Bell is, in my opinion, would say this is a main deck worthy card. I think this will end up being one of the least main deck worthy cards in the end, but this is quite strong. Against Snake Eye, for example, which is the most prevalent deck right now, I think we can quickly also go over to Untapped GG just to see this and to have a good representation of how the meta looks like. For those of you not aware, Untapped GG is quite a nice website. I'm not their sponsor or anything, though you can get this is not the word. You can get sponsored here, but only with 10,000 subscriptions. So guys, please subscribe if you haven't already, so we can go here. This is quite nice. They keep improving this website even more. As you can see, the new feature that they have is that they show you in which rank the deck is mostly played. So you can see Snake Eyes is something mostly played in Master, but you can also see How much the deck is played? So 16% of our players are playing Snake Eyes. So if you want to decide, if you go build your deck, because this is obviously what this tier list is for, then go over here and check what's on this list, and then you can decide whether you want to play a specific hand trap or not. The second most would be Branded Dshter. Then we still have Super Heavy Samurai, Labyrinth, and then also Mefmec and Dshter, which Dshter makes a lot of sense. We will talk about this in a moment when we come to the Dshter. But now talking about the Ghost Bell. So Ghost Bell is really nice against Snake Eye. You can Snake Eye, you can Ghost Bell the Big Daddy Snake Eye, the Flamberge Dragon, to not summon something from the graveyard, which probably is the most impactful point at which you can hit them. Could also use it on the Promethean Princess if he wants to use the Promethean Princess as destruction interruption. Against Labyrinth, for example, it's obviously very great against the Big Welcome Labyrinth, way better than is, for example, a MXC in this case. Against Mefmec, this is also really good because you can negate the most impactful play that they have when they go first, the Mefmec Super Factorial. But this can also come up at different points when you are going first, I guess. When you were going first against Mefmec, you can also negate, I don't know, the Transcode Talker resummoning the Splash Mage, or the Splash Mage resummoning something from the grave. So Ghost Bell at this current point in time is very impactful in the meta. Super Heavy Samurai, I'm just thinking about this. There are also against Super Heavy, which I think the decks that you mostly have to consider are Snake Eyes, then Labyrinth, Branded Dshter, Super Heavy, and then also maybe Mefmec. These are the ones that you have to think about the most. As you can see, everything else is basically under 5%. So look at this list, get a feeling for what is being played, and then decide on your hand traps there. Against Super Heavy, the Ghost Build is also quite nice, can also stop some things, though not as effective as against the other ones. And then Branded Dshter can also be good. There are some cases like a Branded in red, for example, or also a Branded Banishment, though the Branded Banishment adds something to the hand, so that doesn't really work there. Against Branded, not that great, but no hand trap besides Ash is that great against Branded. So I think at this current moment, for the first time, for nearly the first time ever, Ghost Bell is something that you can play or can put in your main deck. Though I still think this will end up on the bottom of something you want to put in your main deck, and therefore in the end you will not really put in your main deck, because there are just other things that you will put in the main deck over the Ghost Bell. So you can also argue this is like top of side deck, but let's for now put it here. We have Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, which is super situational. What you could do is you could just put Promethean Princess in your extra deck, and then you could put your Promethean Princess out, and then your mostly Snake Eye opponent or your Rescue Ace opponent. Or what's another fire deck that uses the princess? Nothing more, right? Is anyone playing like Infernoble? Infernoble is played 3.1%. That's not but not as much in Master, I guess. And then where's Salamangreat, isn't it? Okay, no one is playing Salamangreat, so yeah. But you could use the Ghost Bell Winter Cherries to just rip out the Promethean Princess, and then also rip out the princess from your opponent's deck. I think the best moment that this card ever has was in the Tier Elements meta, where some people were playing this just to rip the Tier Elements Kid Carlos out of the opponent's deck by placing a Kid Carlos in their own extra deck. This was quite nice, quite impactful. So at this point in time, this is super situational. You would never put this in your side deck and never ever put this in the main deck, I think personally. Then we have DD Crow, which I think this is more of a side deck card. There are just too many good main deck cards to put this in. But obviously against a lot of these decks, there are useful things to hit. For example, you can hit Mefmec bodies with Mefmec. You can hit the Big Daddy Snake Eye with Snake Eyes, or like little targets in the graveyard. You could also hit the original Sinful Spoils, so he cannot get another level 1 to the hand on the next turn. In Labyrinth, you can hit the Stovey Torby, the Chandraglier, so they can't be resummoned. And also in Branded, obviously, if your opponent goes for like the Albion, and Albion can set the Branded in red on the end turn, then you can just, for example, remove the Albion so he doesn't get the Branded in red. Super Heavy Samurai, same thing. There are cards that target cards in the graveyard to be resummoned. The Link 1 and also the, I think it's Scales, Super Heavy Samurai Scales, which can resummon something from the grave. If you can just remove the card, then I think it's quite nice. Keep in mind, we are at the moment only talking about the most represented decks, and there are also use cases against other decks, of course. But I think the DD Crow can be quite nice, though in my opinion it's questionable why you would ever choose this over other cards that are in the upper row here. Then we have Red Reboot, which I think I won't place any other of these hand traps in totally useless, because not totally useless, but Red Reboot would only be really good against Labyrinth, I guess, so against Lab, but also if Snake Eye plays the trap with the Diabellstar could work. You could also use this against Mavmag to kick their super factorial, and then we have Branded Dshter, which gets branded. It's not that great, I guess. So it's very, very situational. It's less situational than as Ghost Reaper, but still. Oh, we have another card that we can definitely put in useless. I'm not quite sure. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I hope I'm right here. And the Ghost Mourner and Dogwood, Spooky Dogwood. This is the one that gives life points, right? So I'm not quite sure when you would ever use this card. I can't really imagine a situation in which you want to use this. Maybe if there is a burn deck that also... I think you get life points when something is special summoned. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't even want to look up the card. It's so bad. But this might be a situation in which you want to use it. We have the Droll and Lockbird, which obviously is main deck material and is main deck material over the Go spell. It's quite nice against Snake Eyes, even though Snake Eyes can play quite effectively through the Droll and still make an impressive board. It's super against Mavmag. It's really great against all the combo decks. Manadium against Super Heavy. It's very impactful. It's unfortunately bad against Labyrinth. It's okay against Branded Dshter. And then against, for example, Infernoble, Heroes, against all this very combo heavy stuff, it is really great. So I think there's never been a better moment to play the Droll and Lockbird. And I would play it over the Go spell, though I think in the end it will end up on the lower end here on the main deck hand traps. But I think having Droll in your main deck definitely is very nice. Though in the end you would want to mainly focus on the biggest player in the room, which is Snake Eyes, and then also keep in mind, you go ahead and check this side, right? So if you play in Master, as you can see, the most represented deck in Master by far is Snake Eyes. So you want to maybe put in the most impactful cards against Snake Eyes over the less impactful ones. So there will come hand traps that might be more impactful against Snake Eyes than is Droll and Lockbird, as we will talk about in a moment. Let's talk evenly matched, which is not really a hand trap. Evenly matched, right? I think it's... I don't know, against Snake Eyes, it's not bad against Snake Eyes. It's quite nice against Snake Eyes, I guess. It's side deck worthy, I would say. It can definitely put in some work against most of the decks here. Not against Infernoble, for example, because the charts can just negate this. And I mean, also against other decks, let's say Super Heavy, they will end up with a Baron. Against Snake Eyes, if they go for the full combo, have a Baron, have a Borrowload, then you will not get you evenly matched through, probably. Against something like Mavmag, also not that impactful because they have the interruptions in the grave and then get it out with the Super Factorial. So in the end, maybe it might be more of a situational card. I would not play it as a moment. Maybe if you go like Labyrinth and go play a dedicated going second version, then you might be able to play this. I don't know. Wouldn't even play this in Labyrinth, to be honest. It's very situational, but not as situational as Ghost Reaper, I think. Then we have Gamma. And the thing with Gamma is, if your deck can play a Gamma, then it's a main deck card, right? But I think for everyone else, it's just a side deck card. Decks that can, for example, play a Gamma and in which it is really great is Super Heavy Samurai and Labyrinth. For these decks, this is one of the best hand traps. Might even be better than an Ash Blossom because you get the bodies that you can work with into a Baron de Fleur. This also, the most important thing is that this also doesn't only negate, it also destroys, right? And this is very good against Snake Eyes. If you destroy the Snake Eye Ash, then it also gets negated, but you can also destroy the body. He cannot use the second effect of the Ash, very, very impactful. Or for example, a Diabellstar, you destroy everything, kick her to the grave. This is really impactful against Mavmag, and every time that you use this going first, maybe to negate MXC, then you will end up on a free Baron de Fleur, which is just bonkers. So the thing is, it's the same as with Dimension Shifter. If you can play this card in the current format and your deck is able to, like Labyrinth and Super Heavy Samurai, this is one of the best decks ever. For all other decks, I think this is more of a side deck or situational option because if you summon bodies on the board, this is just useless, right? So I would only say Super Heavy and Labyrinth, put this into the deck. Otherwise, just don't bother with this card. Then we have Evident Impermanence, which this is one of my favorite cards. I think this is so strong. It will end up being the second place here after the Ash. Or you could also argue putting this before the Ash. I just love Infinite Impermanence. It's so versatile. It's good when you go first. It's good when you go second. It's one of the only hand traps that works very effectively both ways. Because if you go first, you just set this, and it's really impactful, and if you go second, you just use it, right? Against Snake Eyes, it's super strong because Infinite Impermanence, the Ash or the Oak, for example, not only stops the search from these little guys, but also the second effect in which they can send something away. Though they could even, they could still pay the cost, so if they send a Big Daddy Flame Birch Dragon away, then they won't be able to summon, but the Flame Birch Dragon might be able to summon something from the grave. This is just a hand trap that is basically good against every deck on the list. There's not a single deck here that Infinite Impermanence is not good against, right? So it's just so impactful. Put this in there. If you don't run 3 copies of this, I don't know what you're doing. And then we have Ghost Thing and Moonlit Chiller, which negates, and then you take damage for the attack points or something. I think this is a situational one of the better ones, but you would never play this over an Effect Veiler or over an Infinite Impermanence, so let's not talk about this. Nibiru. I think Nibiru is quite interesting because Nibiru is quite nice against Snake Eyes, especially if you time it right. This can be very great against Snake Eyes. Let's check here. We have against Snake Eyes, it's really nice. Against Mech. Against Mech, it's also nice. It's only not nice if he starts with his Diameter, which is at 1, so I guess we can't really account for that. It's nice against Kashtira. Mostly they are summoning more than 5 times. Branded Despia, it's not bad against Branded Despia. It's obviously bad against Labyrinth, and it's nice against Super Heavy Samurai. So all in all, this is definitely a main deck worthy card. I would say it's a main deck worthy card over Drawn Lockbird, to be honest. It's a really good time to get to have Nips in your deck. Yeah, for sure. I think that's all we can say about this. Then we have Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, is it called? Which I always dislike this card, and I still do, right? It's just, I think it's very situational, because it destroys, which is nice, for example, against Snake Eye, destroying the Ash or the Oak. But the fact that it doesn't negate is just bad. The fact that it only destroys, I mean, the good thing is that it can also destroy like spell cards, right? It can also destroy a field spell that wants to activate, so that's quite nice, I guess. But in the end, it's not a bad card, but there are just so many cards that are better than this card that it's unbelievable. Then we have SAR Aris, which I could have also put in the uses category, I guess. Let's just put him on the bottom of situation. If you don't know what this card does, it's a ritual monster. If something gets targeted, a card of you gets targeted, then you can discard him to basically negate this targeting effect, like you could negate an Infinite Impermanence. This is the definition of being situational, so it's just bad. If your deck can play Dimension Shifter, however, you should play Dimension Shifter, and then it's probably one of the best cards ever. Not over Maxi, that is. Because Dimension Shifter really stops Snake Eyes, Dimension Shifter stops Mech, Dimension Shifter is nice against Super Heavy Samurai, Dimension Shifter is not bad against Labyrinth and also against Branded Despia, because all of these decks do play over the graveyard, some more than others, especially Snake Eyes, which I think is also the reason why Kashtira is still here. Kashtira has a nice Snake Eyes matchup, especially if you open the Dimension Shifter, though I think where's Flown Aris here, which can also, and Exosister. When I saw this format, I was like, Exosister could be quite nice here. They are on the bottom here. Okay, not really played in Flown Aris. Is it even here? Is it even here? It's not even here, right? Okay, I would have, though Flown Aris has gotten a lot of hits here in Master Duel, I guess that's why we don't see it here. But yeah, if your deck can play the Dshter, that is so impactful. The only thing is that we only have 2 of them, and in the TCG, for example, having 3 of them, having 3 or 2 of such a strong hand trap is definitely a difference. This doesn't only skip like 1 turn, this basically skips 2 turns, because this stays for 2 turns, not like in Maxi. Not saying that this is stronger than MXC, it isn't, but for decks that can play it, this is the strongest hand trap that they can play besides Maxi. For everything else, if you can't play a shifter yourself, then obviously it's useless, right? So it's really hard to place it here. Let's place it in situational, but remember the fact that if your deck can play this, like Kashtira, like Exosister, like Flown Aris, then this is one of the best cards to put in your deck, right? This is super, super disruptive. And then we have, let's do the Phantasmal last. Then we have Effect Veil, which I think is also a main deck worthy card over the Ghost Spell and over Drawn Lockbird question mark. I think this is the spot most likely to be argued about, because the Effect Veiler is really good against Snake Eyes. Being able to negate an Ash or an Oak or a Populous or the Diabellstar herself is very, very strong. This is basically an Infinite Impermanence, which is very strong against this deck. Drawn Lockbird is also strong, but even though even getting Drone Lockbirded, you can make quite an impressive board with Snake Eyes, so that's why you could argue that Drone Lockbird is maybe worse against Snake Eyes than is Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler is also nice against every other deck here, basically. You can always hit something because it's an infinite impermanence, but the thing is, against some decks, for example, Super Heavy Samurai, you would rather have a Drone Lockbird than an Effect Veiler. Same goes for Mathmech, I guess? Though I could argue about that. So I think this is the most tough spot here, whether the Effect Veiler is more useful than is the Drone Lockbird. I would say it depends on where you are playing. So if you're really playing in High Master here, then this might be better. If you're playing not in High Master, then you might be better off playing the Drone Lockbird. So it depends a bit, right? It depends. Maybe it's also personal preference. So what you will always put in is triple Maxi, triple Ash Blossom, triple Infinite Impermanence, and then you can decide what you want to fill up your ranks with. I guess Nibiru is the next one, then Draw, then Effect Veiler, and then this one. Phantasme, which I think is a cool side deck card, because Phantasme, if you don't know what it does, if your opponent Link summons, then you can summon this guy, and he then can draw how was it? Now I have to think about this. Or we can also quickly check at Master Duel, so I don't Master Duel matter, so I don't tell you shit. I think it's the number of Link monsters or the Link rating, something like this. I rarely use this guy. So if your opponent special summons a Link monster, you can special summon this card and draw equal to number of Link monsters your opponent controls +1. So we are drawing. So your opponent Link summons, and then you can draw cards to the number of Link monsters your opponent has +1. Then you have to put one card back, and then this also is a negate when something gets targeted. So this is quite nice. Though the question is, why would you ever play this over a Maxi, which basically gives you even more cards, right? The cool thing is that you can draw cards and then put one back, thereby deciding which one you want to keep. But even in the TCG where they don't have Maxi, and this is then basically a good option, it's rarely played. It's a cool side deck option, especially against, not this one, against Snake Eyes, because they are link summoning a lot. Also against Mathmech, by the way. But against the other decks, Super Heavy Samurai doesn't really link summon a lot. Other ones also not. So I think it's a cool side deck option. I would put this under this. And this is quite hard to rank, because the decks that can play it, it's like a Dshter. The decks that can't play it, it's not that great. So I guess we are also putting these two in the situation category, only being good if your deck can play it, but then they are really, really good. So this is what I think of the current format and the hand traps. Let me know in the comments what you think. Where do you think I am wrong? Where do you think I am right? Let me know. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, hitting the thumbs up and the notification bell, and we will see each other in the next one.